Namaste. The divine in me bows before the divine in each one of you. This is Isha Das, and I want to talk about a theme that is just near and dear to my heart, and that is the theme of love. But let me put it in a context. We live in a world that is not motivated by love, generally speaking. It's motivated by anger. It's motivated by a divisive sort of addiction to ideology. It's motivated by fear and often motivated by anger. And the fruits of these kinds of motivations is the divisiveness and the rancor and the dissolution of civility that we see in our society. And my basic fundamental operating proposition is that what we need is love. And I grew up in the 60s, and a popular song by the Beatles was "All You Need Is Love." And love properly understood, that is really all that we need. You see, love is not an emotion. It's not a sentimental feeling. Love is an energetic force that is constantly seeking to evolve the human race and evolve us individually. Love is really the Spirit of God, the energy of God, the breath of God moving through time and space, creating life, sustaining life, and evolving life. And again, what I want to underline is that love is literally an energetic force. Teilhard de Chardin, the well-known Jesuit scientist and priest, said that love is the most powerful force in creation and the least understood. What I want to say is that it's not that love doesn't work. It's that love is seldom try. So I want to put this discussion today about love in a very human context. Many of you know I belong to a large Italian family, and my wife has a younger sister, Susie, who has suffered her whole life from polycystic kidney disease. And what that essentially means is that over time, her kidney stops functioning. Now, 7 or 8 years ago, she had a kidney and a liver transplant, and thank God the liver is still working fine. But in July of 2018, her kidney stopped working, and she had to go on dialysis 3 times a week, and there were other medical complications, and it virtually ruined her health. And there were a number of times that we were fearful of losing Susie. But what I want to say is that it was the power of love, again, God's spirit, God's energy released into time and space, that sustained Susie and brought her to a place of healing. So let me just give some examples. Number one, if Susie had just given up on life, we would have understood. Again, she went through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Quality of her life was not high at all. And there were a number of times when we thought we were going to lose her to death. But Susie has a love for life. And again, I don't mean love in a sentimental way, but a love for life that acted as a force that sustained her during the darkest times. Another way of saying it is that love manifested in Susie through endurance. Now, endurance is not a sexy virtue, but love will often show up in dark times as endurance, allowing us to stay the course until we get to the other side. So again, love manifested in Susie's life as her love for life and her endurance. There was another aspect to the love that manifested in Susie's life, and that was communal love. that Susie is very much loved by her family, but loved by many people. And over the last year, part of what sustained Susie was all the love and support that came again from her family and from her friends, and even people that she didn't know would send her emails and letters of affirmation. So there was this collective love that came through people that helped to sustain Susie. There was love as common sense. Okay, love, again, isn't just an emotion. Love and truth are really flip sides of the same coin. And Susie and her family members really did demonstrate a great deal of common sense. They did their research. My wife, Vicki, who has been by Susie's side through all of this, did a lot of research by herself and with Susie to get the best medical input. So love, again, is not just an emotional feeling. It's tied to truth, and truth is tied to common sense often, and logic and reason. So that was a manifestation of that love. Susie's husband, Stan, was like a saint by her side, helping her through everything, always loving her, always supporting her. That love helped to sustain Susie. The turning point came in terms of her health when Susie's niece, Tori, who was also my stepdaughter, who has a big and loving heart herself, volunteered. No one asked her. She volunteered to give her kidney to her aunt, to Susie. Again, love, one of the manifestations of love is generosity. Think about it in these terms. Think of life on planet Earth, all the many manifestations of life, the variety of life. Where does that life come from? It comes from the generosity of God. God is a font of generativity. God is always begetting life. God is always giving of God to create and sustain and evolve life. So when we choose to be generous to people in extraordinary ways, but also in everyday ordinary ways, that love builds up and it flows more powerfully through us. There's a line by Jesus in the New Testament that I think is very powerful. It's like a spiritual law. He said, the measure that you give will be the measure that you receive, pressed down and overflowing into your laps. See, this is how love works. The more we give it away in acts of generosity, the more that the stream of love flows through us, the river of love flows through us. Whatever we give away in love, in some way, comes back 100-fold to us. Another very important vehicle for love through all of this was the prayers of many people. And when I say there were thousands of people praying for Susie through this whole ordeal, I'm not exaggerating. We felt that love. Now, on Monday, July 22nd, Susie had her kidney transplant, and all of the family was gathered in the family waiting room. And we were praying, we were talking and supporting each other, but we were also praying. And I could feel, and my wife Vicki could feel, just this collective river of prayers that was coming Susie's way and Tori's way. And when I say we could feel it, it was really, really palpable. And then came the moment when the doctor came and said, Tori's kidney was in great shape, a perfect kidney, and that when it was put into Susie surgically, it began working immediately. The surgery was a success. Again, what Vicki and I felt was all the love that was coming through the prayers of people were part of Susie's healing. And I really can say this with total sincerity and honesty. If all this love was not coming Susie's way, I don't think she would have survived. See, without love, karma, whether you call it karma or habit or conditioning, it just sort of works automatically and mechanically. When we introduce love into a situation, we suddenly open up to new possibilities. When love is brought into a particular circumstance, nothing is determined. Everything becomes possible. So again, with absolute sincerity, I believe it was all the love coming to Susie, through Susie, from other people, from the doctors, and from this collective group of people praying that really did sustain her and bring about the miracle of the kidney and the kidney transplant, and that sustained her up until that point. Another manifestation of love that is very important is gratitude. Immediately, we all felt a sense of gratitude. And the following Sunday, we had a big Italian family dinner, and Susie was able to attend it, and Tori was able to attend it, and all of the brother-in-laws were there. And it was really a time to give thanks to God for the miracle of love and for the miracle of Susie's kidney. Now, I want to tell you a story because I want to give, I want to be fair to the reality of life, because sometimes our prayers are not answered in the way that we want them to be answered, no matter how much love and sincerity that is motivating us. I'll tell you in the form of a true story. There was a family that lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and the 10-year-old daughter had a birthday coming up in June. And maybe a month before, the mother asked her what she wanted for her birthday. And the little girl said, well, I'm going to pray to God for snow. And so every day leading up to her birthday, she prayed for snow. Her birthday came the end of June, and of course there was no snow. And when the mother talked to her later that evening, the mother said, you must be sad that God didn't answer your prayer. And the little girl said, no, God answered my prayer. He just said no. See, within love is God's wisdom, is the mind of God. And the mind of God ultimately knows what is best for our spiritual evolution. So sometimes God says no to what we think is best for us. But God is always saying yes. Love is always saying yes to what is ultimately good for us. So when our prayers are sincere and from the heart, God always answers them. Again, not always in the way we want, but always in the way that we need. Now, what I hope comes from this video is that somehow you and I are more inspired to be instruments of God's love in the world. The one thing that we need in this hot mess of a world is love. Love has to be the sponsoring motivation. Love has to be the core energy that guides us in all domains, our personal lives, social lives, our politics, our finances. Love has to be at the core, the energy of love. And it's very simple, not always easy, but it's very simple to align ourselves with the force of love. It begins with meditation. Ultimately, what meditation is all about is merging with love, merging with the source of love, merging with God, becoming one with God. See, when we merge with God's love, then we really begin the process of becoming love. Secondly, each day we have to make a decision to be an instrument of love, to pray to be God's instruments of love in all situations. A lot of times I might be in a particular circumstance where I don't know what the loving thing to do is, or I'm not feeling particularly loving. What happens in those situations, I stop and breathe and I say an internal prayer. God, make me an instrument of your love, or show me what is the wisest and loving course of action. And whenever I do that, some intuition flows, something happens where I know what to do, where I know what the loving actions or words are, or sometimes The most loving thing is just to remain quiet. But God loves to answer that prayer when we ask and seek to be an instrument of God's love. God will immediately answer that prayer. Again, I want to say what I said at the very beginning. Love is the most powerful force in creation. And it's not that love doesn't work. It's that love is seldom tried. Just think of what we can do if enough of us commit ourselves to meditation and to prayerfully seek to be an instrument of God's love. Collectively, we become an ark like Noah's ark. And what that means is that if enough of us are loving, we have the capacity to save the world and all of God's creatures within the world from destruction. Again, whenever love comes into the picture, the future's not determined. It's wide open. And miracles happen through love. So I'm going to close with a quote from Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, from his book, The Holy Science. Love rules the court, the camp, the grove, the men below and saints above. For love is heaven, and heaven is love. Remember, you come from love. It is God's love that sustains you. And love is your ultimate destiny. The only thing we get to choose is when. Let's together choose love. Let's together be a force for good. Let's together bring God's love and light into a world filled with darkness. Namaste. God bless you.